and welcome to the Think MHK podcast presented by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. On this podcast, you will hear from a variety of people from across the region, including community leaders and business owners. You will hear their Manhattan stories and hopefully get to know your friends and business associates a little better. Thanks for tuning in today. We have a great guest with us today on the Think MHK podcast. It's one of our new committee chairs. We change those out about every year or two, and this committee is extremely important. It's our Economic Development Committee, and the new chair is Patrick Shutter from BHS Construction. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Now, you've been on the show before. It's been a while, though. So why don't you remind us a little bit about your history and how you ended up in Manhattan and how you ended up with BHS?
I made it up here in 2000 and came up here for school. Went through Botech and Emporia for construction and furthered my education at K-State. Got a construction science and management degree. And during that time frame, I went to work for BHS Construction as a, carpenter. Started in 2003. So I've been there 20 years now.
And worked your way up to president?
Yeah.
So where are you from originally? You're from Emporia?
I'm from Emporia.
Okay. Yeah. A little bit about BHS. You all have been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah. So technically we were incorporated in 1965. And the B and the H is Burrell Hoover, and then the S is Sloan, Wayne Sloan. Bob Burrell was the one that started it. It was really a sister company to Burrell Construction as the non-union construction company in the area. And it really didn't do a whole lot of work until Wayne came along in the early 80s, became president, and really started doing more work. And then fast forward to the 90s, there was a few big projects that Wayne had accomplished at BHS. And then fast forward again to where I started in the early 2000s, we started picking up more and more work as really Manhattan grew. And there was more need for more construction related projects.
And of course, Wayne served as the chair of the chamber at a time when we were transitioning presidents and CEOs. And so he was part of the group that hired me and then was my first chair here. And so
yeah.
Now Wayne is semi-retired. He doesn't go into the office very often, but he still hangs around.
Yeah, he's not in there every day, but he definitely checks in on things and is very active. It's really funny. We got done with our board meeting and he sends a text. He had to leave a little bit early and sends a text, and some of the information on the text was just spot on. He's right there with it. So it was good information to have for us up-and-comers, I should say, in the company.
So why does BHS think being involved in the chamber is important?
I think anytime that you can be involved in an organization that helps support the businesses, especially for us that we work for, so other businesses in Manhattan and really the surrounding area, for that matter, the business support that the chamber does is why we like to be involved. And there's a lot of really good networking opportunities too with that.
And when did you become personally involved, and what's been your experience?
I'd say it's been at least 10 or 15 years ago. Wayne really pushed to get me involved early, and I'm glad that he did. Looking back, it was probably a good course of action as far as getting me to know people in the community. And I'd say that started with some of the business after hours and just some of the more social functions involved with the chamber. And I've had a really good time getting to know people through that. There's not a function that I go to that I don't know, 50% of the room. And that all just comes from attending a lot of those events.
And so this year you moved into the chair of the Economic Development Committee. Talk a little bit about what that committee does and who we serve.
Yeah, so the Economic Development Committee, I saw the question, who do we serve? So actually we serve everybody. And I would say that's through just hopefully the development of more prosperity and more opportunities for everybody, whether that be, a new business themselves or a job opportunity within one of the businesses that we help promote or try and attract to Manhattan.
And what are some of the priorities of the Economic Development Committee?
This year and probably the next few years, we're going to be laser focused on site development. So having a shovel-ready site for an entity to move to the area and build their business or expand their business, and jobs. So we want jobs for people, and hopefully that comes through other businesses that we attract.
Yeah, and so the site issue is incredibly important, and we pulled the numbers at the end of 23, and I believe Darren, who is our director of economic development, told me that we were unable to respond to 70% of the leads that we were sent, whether it was through the state or somebody calling directly, or a site selector, because we didn't have an adequate site or building. And we are fortunate that we are having the building issue addressed to some degree, and you're doing that in your that's your other job, right?
Yeah, my other job.
We can talk about it in a minute, but the site issue has become incredibly important. We have a 16-acre site in Manhattan for an industrial project. There's a 20 some odd acre site in Wamego, but what we're seeing is about 90% of the projects right now that are active are manufacturing, and the reason is, and I know you know this, but for our listeners, we're seeing a lot of onshoring, and that continues to happen because we discovered during COVID that people who are manufacturing products discovered that they couldn't be trapped to the supply chain and all the things that were going on in other countries, particularly in countries that may or may not be the most friendliest.
Well, and even companies that were manufacturing things here requiring their suppliers to have onshore products. It's a huge trend, and I mean warehouse space and product on demand or ready to ship is very important.
Meanwhile, we're seeing retail is flat or if not down because retailers are growing their warehouse space, not their showroom space. And office is hit or miss, and we do have some really good office projects that are in the works as well. But talk a little bit about your spec manufacturing facility project, because that has potential to add a lot of jobs in the community.
Yeah, so myself and a partner, Blake Bauer and Icon Investments, is owners of property behind McCall, the old McCall Pattern Building. We own the McCall Pattern Building also, but there's been a vacant lot behind there since 1967 when McCall was originally built. And we have been planning and are now officially under construction for 115,000 square foot warehouse or manufacturing facility. It's open spec at this point. It has not been leased, but that's our intention, is to hopefully attract some new opportunities into town, new businesses, or expand existing businesses into that facility.
And you were able to take advantage of a program that the Chamber, through the Economic Development Committee a couple of years ago, moved forward, and that was an incentive program from the city to encourage spec industrial development.
Yeah. So not only that program for this lot, but that's what really was some of the reason for us to purchase the McCall building itself and develop it as a potential warehouse or manufacturing site.
Yeah. And of course, we all were sad when McCall's left, but you all filled that up right away.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. And actually, the timeliness couldn't have been better. BevHub was expanding rapidly and needed the space, so they filled the whole building within a year. Yeah,
and that's an economic development project we did 2 or 3 years ago. So continue. Success begets success, and we're starting to see that. And so as we look at housing, one of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace, a lot of people will say, well, we'll let the market take care of it. And the challenge with that is, for a variety of reasons, it's lack of workers, it's increase the cost of construction. There's a variety of challenges where communities are now almost competing for investment in housing at the same level that they're competing for investment in jobs and other economic development opportunities.
Well, I think that all stems from trying to attract workforce for any entities, whether it be, construction workforce or just manufacturing workforce. But it pains me to think that you need any sort of government incentive to build any sort of residential projects whatsoever. But I think the real kicker is we failed 20 years ago by not supporting more craft trades and having more tradesmen available to actually do the work. And I think that would have leveled off some of the costs of construction that we're seeing today. I am excited about, we have another project. We talked about one project. I am excited about another project we're currently working on, and that's the building formerly known as Royal Towers, 1,700 lofts. That's a project with Back Nine Development, and the price point on those from the 250s to low 300,000 is going to be a great market for, that starting workforce housing or even young professional housing. You're just not seeing product on the market to that scale yet. There'll be 56 units up there when that project's completed.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the whole. We're just all going to have to look at housing differently than we did 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago.
I don't think Manhattan's necessarily unique in the fact that housing has changed across the country. I think we're going to see a lot more in a lot of the reports that I see. You're going to see a lot more multi-family housing units, whether that be condos or apartments. As far as starting homes, you're not seeing the mass greenfield sites with a whole bunch of single family homes. You're going to see more multifamily. And I think that's because they're more of the price point people can afford.
And that's more efficient for communities as well in terms of infrastructure. And you don't have to lay roads out to the edge of the community, water, sewer, all those things. And so there's a lot of advantages to that. One of the other items that at the time of the recording of this, we're just getting off the ground. Hopefully by the time it comes out, we'll be further. But we are also going to be working this year on updating our economic development strategy. And again, I know this is really early, but that will be a priority, and we will have an update on that as we go forward through the year. So, and I know you'll be a big part of that, and hopefully you're as excited about that as we are.
I am actually. You'd mentioned a couple of years ago, I forget the program's name, but it was very broad, and I love the idea of being more laser focused into a couple of accomplishable goals. I think that's the more we target those and really do well with a couple of goals, I think we'll succeed and then can move on to the next ones.
Yeah. So more on that later. So why should the average Manhattan citizen care about economic development?
Taxes. One way or another, people are paying more property taxes, whether you rent or own. And it's a huge thing. They are not going down. The expenses that cities incur to provide all the services that are required. And, you mentioned this of building more infrastructure going up, using the same infrastructure for more units or more property value is very important. And municipalities are really waking up to this. I really feel like Manhattan's been on the forefront of that thought process too, which has been encouraging. But yeah, the average citizen care about that, taxes and opportunity. So having the opportunity for maybe a better paying job or a job with better benefits or, better life balance, I guess, as far as what they want to go do. We have a ton of young people that leave K-State, whether they stay in the city or not, they're leaving the state, and we want to keep them here. So providing more opportunities.
Yeah, because we need more taxpayers, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to maintain the quality of life that we come to expect, you have two choices. You either the people who are here pay more, or we bring more people in to help pay for that.
And then that's really the choice in every civic decision that's made, right? It's what do we want to have happen? And if you decide to do nothing, you're deciding for taxes to go up for everybody,
or cut services,
cut services.
So we actually have put some information together as we're working on the strategic planning, and we've talked about this a lot. We've been fairly stagnant in population growth for the last decade. We've been stagnant in job growth for the last decade. Our wage growth has not seen the same level as some of our peer communities. And as you look at some of the negative economic actions that have happened in the Manhattan region in the last decade, it's amazing we've been stagnant because we've lost 3,500 soldiers. We've lost 5,000 students. There are less families choosing to move here with their soldier spouses because of all the deployments that have happened. And so the fact that we've been stagnant is remarkable. And as we looked at some of the causes for that, why we've been able to keep our head above water, we've had about $2 billion with a B dollars of public projects over the last decade. That's not a sustainable model. I mean, it would be great to say, oh, we're going to have 2 billion more public projects over the next decade. I doubt we're going to get another MBAF. I doubt we're going to see another $350 million hospital built at Fort Riley. I doubt we're going to be able to replicate another North Campus corridor. And so we better be thinking about what we can do in the private sector, because more public sector growth just means more expenses to the rest of us. What do you think are some of Manhattan's greatest challenges and opportunities looking ahead?
Well, we kind of touched on it earlier, is site and land. We're very landlocked between the Fort, K-State, and the lake. I think land's our greatest challenge. So where do we put people?
It is kind of a difficult situation to look at. What do you think some of the opportunities are?
Pot County for land.
Yeah.
I think the city having the forefront to look and study what it would take to incorporate some of Blue Township into the city and incorporate that as part of Manhattan. I mean, anybody that I forget who made this comment to me, but anybody that comes into the community that doesn't know where the lines are, they would think that is part of Manhattan anyways. And really, Blue Township is benefiting from a lot of city services that they're not really having to afford that the rest of Manhattan is. So I think there's a great opportunity, and there's a lot of land there too that can be developed. That Highway 24 corridor's going to be really important in the next couple decades.
Yeah, one of the other things we sell a lot as well is that we are one of the few communities, certainly in Kansas, but really in the region, that has a pretty good pipeline of talent. So between Kansas State and Fort Riley, if you have good employers that offer good jobs, and we can start clustering these things together where there's more than just one opportunity, I think we'll convince the 2,500 soldiers who leave every year and the 4,000 students who leave every year to at least consider Manhattan as a home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is kind of the last question that we usually ask people is, what else, right? So what are some of the other things about your chamber experience and now being chair of economic development do you think are important for people to know?
It's really meeting some very great people. I'm not going to mention any names, but it's just
other than me, right?
Yeah, you, Jason.
Yeah.
So